This video is one of several early warning indicator system resources on the websites of the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. In this video, we'll show how educators across Massachusetts use the EWIS reports and strategies in a cycle of inquiry to improve supports for all students as they enter high school, go through high school, and prepare for success after high school.
In Brookline, our interest in EWIS actually came out of our child study team. In that work, we oftentimes had the experience where we wished that we had intervened earlier for those students.
Educators use the EWIS reports in Edwin to identify who is at risk at the beginning of the school year. Educators can review data, understand underlying causes of students' risk, track practice and programming adjustments during the school year, and reflect on progress at the end of the year. The 6 steps of the early warning implementation cycle are explained in an online tutorial and a guide on the EWIS website.
I started using EWIS 2 years ago, and as part of both the workshop and the class, I used this model, the early warning implementation cycle. They gave us a nice framework for how to look at the data, what are the high priority areas of concern and that type of thing. Did the whole, the monitoring throughout the year, and last year worked with members of my department.
EWIS predicts a student's risk of missing an academic milestone if no additional interventions are provided. These academic milestones span early elementary through post-secondary success. For students in grades 7 through 9, educators can see who is at risk of not passing their 9th grade classes. For students in grades 10 and up, there are 4 risk levels: high school graduation and 3 post-secondary outcomes.
I was really excited when they came out with the post-secondary enrollment risk level. So it really was that group of students, anywhere from the student that is really high risk, that you see all the time, to that kid that really floats under the radar. They kind of have the grades to go on, like they might get in somewhere, but they really need that push. So we ended up with this target group. With our population, it was about 60 students. And what we did as a goal was that we would meet every single one of these students by December 1st.
Educators can examine the indicator trends to get a feel for potential underlying causes of risk. Examine this alongside local information and what you know about your students to narrow in on causes.
How this starts with the Edwin is we identify those students in August that are at high risk for not achieving that academic milestone. 75% of those students will have passed English, but typically between moderate and high risk, you have 25% to 58% passing their core science, math, and social studies courses. As a result of that, in their grades, we may place them in org skills. And we have created organizational skills classes with a teacher-student ratio of 1 to 10. Teachers develop lesson plans and give students opportunities to practice and acquire those skills.
Focusing on attendance, we have a couple of specialized homerooms for students with attendance, so I think we'll be looking, within the next couple of weeks, really kind of target the students with the high and moderate risk levels, and then going into the individual student reports to see their history of attendance, which I think is so helpful because you can go, if they've been in Massachusetts, go all the way back to kindergarten. Is this a more recent issue, or is this, a long-standing issue? And it kind of gives you some direction. And we have 4 sending communities where we get our students from, and probably, between 15 and 20 middle schools. The data that you receive from the different schools varies. Sometimes you really have complete records, and sometimes you have next to nothing at all. So I think when the counselors are all able to see, the risk level and identify students early on, and just see you don't have what you need in the file, you go to this quick report, and it just helps you to get things done quickly in a much more comprehensive way.
Based on the exploration of underlying causes, educators can take action with interventions, adjustments, or other changes.
So we set a goal to meet all of these students by December 1st to work on plans with them. What I did was I created drop downs in a Google spreadsheet So I pre-populated the list and the levels, and the 4 categories were for post-secondary plans: applied to schools and/or programs, has a plan but has not applied yet, met with the counselor but has no plan, and has not met with the counselor yet. It's not to say that every single kid followed through on that at the end of the year, but every kid had a plan going forward. And so we did that through meeting with the students, and we also partnered with our local community college to do a lot more on-site work.
When considering post-secondary readiness, many schools are deepening their focus on college and career advising with students. See resources on the DESE website for more on college and career advising.
So we used the new FAFSA completion report, which was great because it was not only easy to use, but it was sort of real time. You know, you're seeing the students that you're currently working with, you know, students who say they're going to college, they're applying for scholarships, but haven't applied for financial aid. So I think that was a nice way to introduce people last year and get them more comfortable.
To update the view of students' academic risk throughout the school year, monitor students' performance each marking period using one or several indicators.
We had planned targeted interventions in which I had a spreadsheet in which we have every student, every term. I need to figure out who is on track for not earning 5.5 credits, who has had out-of-school suspensions, and who is at 10% risk. That is culled down into a quarterly spreadsheet that is shared with all of our teachers. Many of our early interventions, which I also track in the spreadsheet, have now become proactive supports. We have established homework club. We have established face-to-face meetings with parents, students, administration, and guidance the first 2 weeks of September of all of our high-risk students, moderate-risk students. This is the action plan. What happened last year? What do we put in place to address it? We've assigned homework club as well. We pre-established parent, student, teacher communication on a bi-weekly basis when it's necessitated.
To update the view of students' academic risk throughout the school year, educators can use the EWIS monitoring tool or the Attendance and Suspension Monitoring Report in Edwin. With the EWIS monitoring tool, combine students' EWIS risk levels with other data, assign students to interventions, and update this throughout the year.
What we did as one of the interventions was to partner with our community college, and they did an on-site, on-the-spot acceptance day, and then they did an on-site registration over the course of the spring, and the students got really, really excited. And I think the nicest part was the middle reps were like, these are really great kids. They must really have their act together. And these were some kids that were not, that was not usually the first words that would come out of someone's mouth over the past years, but giving them those supports and having targeted them allowed them to really feel successful.
We deal with struggling students who haven't made connections to school. And so when we have the family in and we have the student in, we're establishing the pattern of communication, and we say to the student that, you know, the guidance counselor and myself, we're going to be calling you down, we're going to be checking on you, we care about you, and that opens the doorway so that the student knows we're checking rainbow progress, we're talking to teachers, and we say to the student, if you get a 90 on your math test, please come show us. And we had a student come last year in December and said to the guidance counselor, I got a 90, and she posts it on her whiteboard, and the kids like to come in and they see it, and it's a positive affirmation that, gee, if people believe in me and I study, I can get rewarded.
Use these data and intervention results to prepare for transition meetings or plan summer supports.
In Brookline, our elementary schools are K to 8, so that transition from 8th to 9th grade is something that we pay a lot of attention to. So beginning in the winter and throughout the spring, we try to have really thoughtful transition meetings where 8th grade teams are informing high school about concerns they have about different students. We attempt to thoughtfully use that information to put supports in place day one.
In step 6, refine the process and consider changes to incorporate into next year's plans.
It has also resulted in rich conversations with teachers in terms of what is an F. 50 is an F, so is 30. Let's not put a kid out in Siberia because they failed the first 2 terms. It's also resulted in rich conversations and consistent application of remediation policy practice within our freshman academy. Because if you take a driver's license test, you fail the first time, are you ever denied a driver's license the rest of your life? No. Students learn at different rates. Students have opportunities to practice, learn what they didn't learn, and then take the assessment again, okay, certainly within certain parameters.
Last year, I think because we were able to use the FAFSA report that was really very easy to access, very easy to use, real time, I think, by the end of the year, people felt really comfortable about that. It's going to be a process. So if we can make a little bit of progress every year and just get people more comfortable in understanding the value of the data, that'll be really important.
Visit the EWIS website to learn more about DESE's Early Warning Indicator System.